Welcome to Global Focus, where we decode the forces shaping geopolitics beyond mainstream lanes. I am Hariprakash Sinha, and today we take a deep dive into the region often overlooked yet critically important, Central Asia. While Western narratives paint Russia as a declining power, the reality on the ground tells a different story. From energy diplomacy to security pacts, Russia remains a key player in shaping the region's future. To help us unpack Russia's strategic role in Central Asia, we have with us a distinguished expert, Dr. Adityanjee, President of the Council for Strategic Affairs. With his deep insights into Eurasian geopolitics, he will shed light on Russia's evolving strategy, its rivalry with China, and what this means for India. So welcome, Dr. Adityanjee. Welcome to our platform once again.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha, for inviting me once again on Global Focus. It's always a pleasure to be here because you always find very significant geopolitical questions to discuss.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So my first question is, why is Russia's influence in Central Asia still strong despite Western sanctions?
I think we have to look at the history. Technically, Central Asia is comprised of 5 independent states. These are in the Western parlance called stans.
Stans.
Yeah, it has come from the original Sanskrit word sthan.
Okay.
Because this is, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. So these 5 countries constitute officially Central Asia region. Mm-hmm. Afghanistan is on the periphery of Central Asia. It's not considered part of Central Asia.
I see.
If you look at these 5 quote unquote stans or Central Asian countries, they were part of the Soviet Union. Right. All 5 of them, they were Soviet republics.
Yeah.
From whenever Soviet Union started around 1917, and when it dissolved in December of 1991, they became independent. These countries have geopolitical as well as geoeconomic significance.
Oh, I see.
Anyone who wants to control the Eurasian landmass has to control the hinterland. And Central Asia is the hinterland. So, yes, with the dissolution of Soviet Union, there is a race to fill the strategic vacuum in the Central Asia region. Now, despite the end of Soviet Union, it doesn't mean that the Russian influence has stopped. No, that's not true. Russia has political and other ties with these countries. Yeah. They were our electricity grid, energy connectivity, pipelines, trade, language influence. When they were part of the Soviet Union, Russian was taught as a second language.
Oh.
So the elite in these countries, they went to study in Russia or as part of the Soviet Union. So there are still ties, there are still influences. There are other powers that are trying to get a foothold or a toehold.
Right.
China is the obvious one.
Yeah.
Of course, the United States wants to extend its influence everywhere. There is some interest on part of India, but India is a very late comer. India has not been a strong nation to do power projection and, have geopolitical influence abroad. But there's another country that is very much involved. and that is Turkey or Turkey.
Oh.
Similarly, Iran, that has some shared borders, wants to spread its influence. Now, Iranian regime is fundamentalist.
Mm.
Turkish regime was secular Muslim, but now under Erdogan, he is
Yeah.
trying to become modern day caliph. And these five countries, although they are Islamic countries by predominant religion, they were part of a communist empire. And usually the transition on each of the country was from communist party to a strongman that had communist background. And there's a lot of fear of Islamic fundamentalism spreading through these countries. So the leaders or the strongmen in these countries have tried to check Islamism or jihadism
Mm-hmm.
to spread. So they are trying to restrict the fundamentalist practices. So from all these aspects, it's a very crucial region of the world
Mm-hmm.
because ultimately whoever wants to control the Eurasian landmass has to go to Central Asia. And that is being reflected in number of geo-economic projects in terms of connectivity. All the countries are trying to build up, roads and other economic corridors and things like that. So yes, there have been some sanctions by the West on Russia recently, but Russia's influence still remains. Russia is very much part of, the geo-economic and geopolitical architecture in this region. You can see multiple competing organizations that are trying to hook these countries as a fish by offering a bait. And sometimes they are one country specific, sometimes they are, by a group of countries. So if you look at SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization,
Yeah.
started in 1997 as Shanghai 5,
Mm-hmm.
China, Russia, and three Central Asian countries. Now it has, of course, expanded. It involves even India, Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan. Uh, Similarly, you have what is called CSTO, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, which is a Russian Federation security architecture for the region, and some of these countries are members. You have Eurasian Economic Union. Now, Eurasian Economic Union is a Russian-sponsored economic project that wants to have economic connectivity in the former Soviet Union's areas of influence or former republics. And then you have Turkey-sponsored organization called Organization of Turkic States.
I see.
So, Organization of Turkic States has who? Of course, Turkey, then Azerbaijan, and some of these Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, etc.
Yeah.
And interestingly, now Hungary wants to join Organization of Turkic States. So there's a lot of what Britishers call great game in Afghanistan. There's a lot of great game going on in Central Asia because of the geo-economic and geopolitical significance of these countries. Everyone knows about the mineral and rare earths in Afghanistan,
Right.
but they are the same region. So China is trying to do investment. In fact, China's trade, bilateral trade with Central Asian countries is around $89 billion. $43 billion just with Kazakhstan and $20 billion with Uzbekistan, and it has increased. So although Russian economic footprint may be reduced and China is expanding its influence, Russia is not giving up. Russia is tolerating China under the current conditions because Russia needs Chinese support during this war that is ongoing in Ukraine, but Russia is not going to give it up. Interestingly, I told you that India is a latecomer to this.
Mhm.
India has interests. Again, the issues are connectivity. So India is part of the INTSC, International North-South Transport Corridor. India did not have any land access directly to Central Asia because part of Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir is occupied under adverse possession.
Yeah.
If we are able to get POK and POL
Mhm.
liberated from Pakistan, we would have direct land connection with Central Asia through Afghanistan. There is this slice of territory called Wakhan Corridor.
Mhm.
So, with Jammu and Kashmir, the entire state, if it is deoccupied,
Yeah.
will have land connectivity with Central Asia. But India has tried to surpass this by creating a land, route through Chabahar airport, port, maritime port, uh, and also being party to INTSC. But
Yeah.
interestingly, India constructed actually uh, a roadway in Afghanistan, which is called Dalaram Zaran's Highway. It's a national highway in Afghanistan. I think it's around 200 kilometers. India spent $150 million building it. It's a two-way kind of road.
Mm.
So it goes, up north into Nimroz province of Afghanistan. So you have connectivity with Chabar port in Iran to Afghanistan through Dalaram Zaran's highway,
Mm.
and from up there you can go into Central Asia. India has also developed air corridor connectivity with Central Asia. So, uh, unbeknownst to a lot of people, we have in India
Mm.
two Air Force bases in Tajikistan.
See.
Uh, and they help us, they have helped us in evacuation of non-resident Indians stranded in other countries.
Yeah.
They've also helped us to provide relief supplies to Afghanistan. One
Mm.
Aini, AYNI, Aini Air Base, another is Parkhor Air Base, which are at around 150 kilometers apart, but both are in Tajikistan. So India has some air connectivity there, not having land connectivity because Pakistan has always refused to India the land connectivity to Afghanistan and thereby to Central Asia. So although India has been a laggard, but India has now started to show interest in Central Asia. In fact, in 2022, India conducted a India Central Asia summit, you know,
Right.
and surprisingly, China followed up. In 2023, China did first China Central Asia summit. So I'm trying to, tell you all these things to emphasize what is the importance of Central Asia.
Yeah.
After these 2 days of drama coming out from Oval Office in White House,
Yeah.
now we are hearing that Donald Trump wants to go back into Afghanistan to counter Chinese influence because China is, hogging all
Mhm.
the copper and rare earths and minerals in Afghanistan.
Mm.
So United States, although is taking an isolationist posture as far as Europe and Asia is concerned, wants to go back into Afghanistan because of the mineral wealth there. So it tells you this Central Asian region how important it is geoeconomically as well as geopolitically.
So, how does Russia's role in Central Asia impact India's connectivity and energy security?
See, ultimately, for energy security, you need overall security.
Yeah.
We have Now, of course, there's a Taliban government, but
Mhm.
prior to Taliban 2.0, we had a friendly government in Afghanistan.
Yeah,
So, road connectivity was going to provide us with some security. We cannot get directly hydrocarbons from Central Asia. For that, there is a pipeline that is under construction. It's called TAPI.
yeah, Tapi.
Uh, TAPI, India is a reluctant participant. I
Yeah,
think it is Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. It's a
yeah,
pipeline. It has nothing to do with Russia,
yeah,
but it's a gas pipeline and it could conceivably transport gas to India. The problem there is that there are no security guarantees.
yes,
You know, you will have to pay for building. Of course, Turkmenistan has constructed its part, and I think Afghanistan has done some construction. But why should India pay for construction of this and then pay transit fee? And countries like Afghanistan and Pakistan will get the revenue. But in case of adversity, they can just turn the taps off. Terrorist incidents can happen. So there's a lot of ambivalence on part of India for TAPI gas pipeline. Uh, Under normal circumstances, this would have given some energy security to India. The gas that will be purchased through and brought through TAPI pipeline would almost cost double of the cost of gas production in India. So it's not economically a lucrative or feasible kind of thing. So right now we get our energies from multiple sources, and of course, with Western sanctions on Russia, India purchased hydrocarbons from Russia, which are transported otherwise through shipping mechanisms. So we are getting it, but overall for energy security, if we have to, have a multi-linked energy supply, whether in terms of hydrocarbons, then you need to have security presence in these countries. So whether you manufacture, whether you build roads, whether you build ports, whether you build, air bases, it's part of the same game. In order to secure your energy supplies, your trade routes, you do need to have security presence. Otherwise, terrorists will take
yeah,
over.
yes. So is China replacing Russia as the dominant power in Central Asia? And what does this mean for India?
China has not replaced. China is attempting to replace, and that is not acceptable to Russia. And Russia, despite now people perceive it as a junior partner of China because of close all-weather friendship with China,
Mhm.
because of Russian dependence on China. But in heart of heart, even Vladimir Putin does not want to be playing second fiddle to Xi Jinping.
Yeah,
And Russia perceives its own threats separately from China in Russia's Far East. China is making inroads into Central Asia. China has the advantage of having a land border. And China is doing everything so that India does not have connectivity with Central Asia. That means they have their PLA present in Pakistan, guarding the CPEC, in
mm,
Gwadar, in Balochistan, in Pakistan occupied Ladakh, Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir. PLA is present everywhere. Now, there are reports that PLA is making its presence felt in Afghanistan. And if Wakhan corridor is annexed either by Pakistan or China, that would be a body blow to India's Central Asian access and plans. So India has to make sure that despite not having land connectivity at this time, we do not yield to Chinese presence and we have our independence presence in these 5 Central Asian countries. Unfortunately, that part of the world had been ignored by India for a very long period of time.
Yes.
But at least now with this India Central Asia Summit in 2022, and I think there was one in 2024, India is, making its presence felt. Bilaterally, India has good relationships with these countries because we don't have any ideological differences.
Yes.
And as we are battling the results of an onslaught of jihadi terrorism,
Mm-hmm.
I think one of these countries, I don't know whether it is Tajikistan or Turkmenistan,
Mm.
they are the headquarters for SCO, for anti-terrorism mechanism called RATS, Regional Anti-Terrorism Security. The headquarters is there. So India has its interest in the region. People have criticized India for becoming a member of SCO,
Mm-hmm.
but it does make sense. By being outside SCO, you
Mm.
don't have any influence. But by being a member of SCO and by participating in some of the SCO projects, you
Mm.
build up leverage in these countries.
Yeah.
You have a reason to be there, despite SCO being SCO, which stands for Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the successor of Shanghai 5, headquartered in Beijing, China sponsored security cum economic regional grouping in Central Asia. So I have my full support for India's participation in SCO because it gives you a vehicle. By not being on the table, you leave no influence at all. In fact, my suggestion to the government of India would be to negotiate with China to change the name of SCO. It can still remain SCO, but it should not be country specific. So the name needs to change from Shanghai Cooperation Organization to Solidarity and Cooperation Organization. It still remains SCO,
Oh.
but it is not China specific. So it does not reek of Chinese hegemony. In past, SCO has done some military exercises, but at that time, India was not party to it. India has not participated in military exercises of SCO, but has participated in anti-terrorist activities of SCO. So yes, China would like to be the numero uno, replacing United States as the sole hyperpower, and China is extending its presence everywhere. Russia is not going to give up its influence, although Russia is going through a weakened economy because of Western sanctions. And as Indian economy is growing at a rate of 6.5% every year, and Indian economy is galloping, of
Yeah.
course, not at the rate one wants, India should not actually hold up its cards in Central Asian region. India should continue to build, economic projects so that we have leverage in that region. And once POL and POK are liberated from adverse occupation,
Mm.
we should have a direct land access to these Central Asian countries.
So, can India and Russia collaborate to counter Western influence in Central Asia?
I think that's a very logical question. I
Mm.
would say that initially Russia under Putin was very wary of India's participation. They had barred India from Aini Air Force Base for a period of time. India had invested some money in that base, and Russia did not approve of it and forced Tajikistan to stop that air base. So it was in hibernation for some period of time. Then India developed another air base in Tajikistan. I think it's not just question of countering Western influence. Russia has to also counter Chinese influence.
Yeah.
And that is why Russia encouraged and promoted and facilitated India's entry into SCO. Of course, the cost to be paid was simultaneously Pakistan's application in STO was approved. So India and Pakistan, I think, became members of SCO in 2015 or 2018, one of that. So yes, Central Asia is the region where Indian interests and Russian interests are not antagonistic mutually. They are complementary,
Yeah.
and Russian government should work with India. Having said that, I don't hold the current Russian government in very high esteem because time and again, whenever the situation is to their advantage, they have played the Pakistan card on India. So we should not forget that. But I'm all for cooperation with Russian Federation in Central Asian region, taking up, uh, gas pipelines or energy connectivity, land connectivity. There are a number of corridors there. Besides INSTC, there's a northern Russian corridor, transport corridor, that actually conveys almost 100 metric tons of goods every year. And then there is a new one that has been proposed or started called, I think, CITR, Trans-Caspian International Transport Route. This is China supported, and this is new. This is not so well established, but because of Western sanctions on Russia, people are not using the northern Russian corridor. There's a middle corridor also that is China supported. So there are a lot of connectivity projects, whether part of BRI or part of Russian supported, transport corridors in Eurasian Union Economic Region. Uh, so there is a scope for India to work with Russia, and I would suggest that India should also try to work with Eurasian Economic Union because it gives you access to the markets. Whether you may not be a member, you can become observer or something like that and try to work with Russia because as an independent country, as an emerging pole in emerging multipolar world, you have to deal with all the poles. And you know that Western pole, which is now subdivided into European Union and United States, they have their own interests. So you cannot align all your interests with one grouping.
Yeah.
And you know that any grouping that is supported and sponsored by China will be antagonistic to you. So you should be able to work independently with all the emerging powers, whether they are, Russian Federation or European Union for that matter, even, or individual countries in European Union like France. India should leverage its status as a middle power. It's a large consumer market with a middle class of almost 500 million people,
Yeah.
which is the entire population of EU. So India offers a lot of attractions to all the emerging economies and all the emerging middle powers. And as the world is transforming from a bipolar to multipolar world
Yeah.
with decline in US economy and emergence of other poles, and they are basically five poles. So you would have United States remaining on top, and
Yeah.
then China, then India, then European Union. It's a strong pole. We have, and EU will start asserting its independence from US now with what has happened over the last couple of days and with Trump's presidency, second presidency. I see a rupture between US and EU as separate poles. So we are going to be a multipolar world with five different poles. And India would be the ultimate balancer in that. So we have to work for our national interests with and work with whoever emerging power or emerging pole we can work with. There is no fidelity here that you have to work only with United States and only with Russian Federation and only with European Union. In fact, President of European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, was in
Yeah.
India trying to negotiate a free bilateral free trade area with the European Union. So we should not discount anyone. We should work with everyone to the national advantage,
So,
specifically in Central Asia.
mm, so thank you, sir. Thank you. So that was all the question I had for you today. So, friends, as we have seen today, Russia's role in Central Asia is far more nuanced than what the dominant narrative suggests. Whether it's countering Western influence, balancing China, or securing its strategic interest, Moscow remains deeply entrenched in the region of power dynamics. A big thank you to Dr. Adityanjee for his expert insights and to our viewers. If you found the discussion valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Global Focus. For
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Harisina, for inviting me on your platform. My parting message to your audience and my parting message to India's security establishment is to get POL and POK deoccupied from adverse possession. It's an integral part of India's landmass, because that
yes.
would be a crucial step to give land connectivity to Central Asia region.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.